Hi, I'm Pat Kowite. I'm a parishioner here at St. Francis, and I was a member of the staff for 29 years. I have a story I want to share with you. It's such a great story that goes way back to the beginning of this parish, and I think you're going to like it. So, we're sitting here, and I'm going to read to you, because this is not my story. It's the story of someone who lived here a while back. Her name is Brenna Bozart, and here's her story. Recently, I told the following to a friend who urged me to write it in the hope that somehow the people of the parish of St. Francis of Assisi in Raleigh might hear it. This is a truthful accounting of the awesome vision of a child's faith and a simple cardboard shrine. When I was a child, between the ages of 10 and 16, I grew up in a rural area about 12 miles from the city limits of Raleigh. In the summer, out of school, my days were filled with farm chores, animals, and loneliness. For I was a child of the vast fields and woods of the South. Having no friends in the area of my own age, I was often left to my own devices to seek companionship. Being of a romantic nature and possessing a highly imaginative faith, I found great inspiration one year in the movie Song of Bernadette, which was popular in that time. Oh, how I yearned to be Bernadette who saw the Virgin Mary. I would free my goats from the pens and take my bread and cheese to the field on the land where we lived, and like the children in the movie, I would eat my lunch while the goats grazed. Often I would kneel and pray the rosary on my knees, as we all did in those days, eyes downward, but frequently looking out to check on the goats and looking up to check, just in case, for a vision. On many of these ventures to my secret place, I would bring along my favorite book, a recording of the life of St. Francis of Assisi. From this little book of childhood, I became inspired to erect a shrine, like those I had seen in movies, to St. Francis of Assisi. However, there was no lumber available, and I was no carpenter. I was the sole person in that place and therefore had no one to assist me. But I had a cardboard shoebox I always carried with me to the fields, in which I packed my lunch and my book. I took this and made from it a little shrine and nailed it to a tree and printed underneath it in large block letters, St. Francis of Assisi. In the pine needles below, I hid my rosary beads and my book, covering them with a rock for protection. Throughout the summer, this was my place. In a child's faith, I prayed to the Mother of God, and I talked to St. Francis, inviting him to play with my goats and with me. The birds sang, and the rabbits and the many small animals of the woods ventured near. There never was a vision, and time passed. We lost the farm and moved away. Recently, I was reading in the North Carolina Catholic the listing of the Mass schedules for the churches of the Diocese of Raleigh, and I discovered, to my surprise, that there is a church where I once lived. To my great surprise, I read that the name of this church is St. Francis of Assisi. Well, humbly, I wish to tell the people of this parish the above story of a little girl who lived in lonely yearning on a land that is now theirs, for a vision she never saw, but is now seen in their community of faith. You are the other side of the story. The living, unending conclusion of a child's belief and a cardboard prayer. I may never see what it is like with you there, but I wanted you to know what it was like for me when I was there. St. Francis prepared a place for you. So that is the end of Brenna's story, what she wrote. But now, I have to tell you the rest of the story. You know, there used to be a commentator on the radio, and his name was Paul Harvey, and he always phrased his stories in light of the rest of the story. Well, here's the rest of Brenna's story. She did move away from this area, this place where we now have our community of faith, but for her it was the field where she prayed to St. Francis. Let me tell you where Brenna is now and what she's doing. She did hear that calling from St. Francis. Maybe not the vision of the Blessed Mother, but she was called to serve other people. And she's doing that now. She is in the Charlotte area, and she is the chaplain at a Jesuit hospital there. She has her doctorate in ministry, and she is living her life of faith. And do you know what she says? She said in a letter to us that she sent later, that it sprang forth from this ground. Well, what does that say to us? What springs forth from our faith community in my life and in your life? What are we called to in serving God, in being Christ for other people as we are called to? Isn't that a wonderful question? It's a great story, and it means a lot to us today.